This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Well, do you want to jump into the Great Hunt?
Yeah.
We're starting off with the serpent and the wheel as the icon, and the chapter title is The Flame of Valon, which I'm sure is a reference to the Armelin seat.
Who's on her way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we see that at the end of the chapter. And the first 3 paragraphs of this are awesome. I kind of want to read all of them. I hope that's okay.
I mean, I think you have to read the first paragraph.
The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend, then fade to myth, and are long forgot when that age comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of doom. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. We love that.
That's such a great paragraph. So the only thing that's different is where the wind rose, right? So this time it's in the mountains of doom.
Yeah, that's the only way it ever changes.
Which is, isn't that a Jordan reference to some Tolkien?
Oh yeah, Mountain of Doom.
Right.
Jules is super into The Lord of the Rings, which I still have not started, even though I told her that I would. She gave me 4 books, The Hobbit and the first 3.
Okay, so basically we need to pull Jules in here and do another podcast on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we could. She knows her shit with that. I've been trying to get her to start. I told her that I would, if she reads Eye of the World, I will read The Hobbit and the first 3 books of The Lord of the Rings, because they're like approximate. It's like I would be doing a little bit more reading. They're not long.
No, but they are way more dense.
Yeah. I've always felt like I ought to read them being a fantasy fan, but I just haven't. And she likes to put the movies on a lot, like when we're not really watching TV.
Sure.
And I've just noticed so many parallels. Also, The Lord of the Rings takes place in the Third Age in that world. I noticed that.
So does this story.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, I think it's important that you have like an age before the current age that you can describe, Age of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of is what your current society came out of. But then you need the society before that has all like mysterious stuff that like is laying around and creates all like the weird story building stuff.
The second age that the rings of power were made, and all the dwarven mines were, bustling or whatever.
Which is very much like the Age of Legends, where they made the Power Wrought weapons and they made the ways as opposed to the dwarven tunnels. Like there's a ton of parallels. There's no doubt that Jordan was heavily, heavily influenced.
Oh yeah. I also noticed a scene where Sauron uses ravens as spies.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's just like one scene in passing, and like I said, I haven't read the books. I'm just talking about the movies, but that may happen a few times in the books. I'm not sure. I'll continue on here. Born among black, knife-edged peaks, where death roamed the high passes, yet hid things still more dangerous, the wind blew south, across the tangled forest of the Great Blight, a forest tainted and twisted by the touch of the Dark One. The sickly sweet smell of corruption faded by the time the wind crossed that invisible line men called the border of Shinar, where spring flowers hung thick in the trees. It should have been summer by now, but spring had been late in coming, and the land had run wild to catch up. New-come pale green bristled on every bush, and red new growth tipped every tree branch. The wind rippled farmers' fields like verdant ponds, solid with crops that almost seemed to creep upward visibly.
So there's 2 things I wanted to talk about in that paragraph.
Yeah.
The first one was where death roamed the high passes, yet hid from things more dangerous. And that's the second reference to more dangerous things living in the past. Remember, the worms didn't come into the passes because something more dangerous was living up in there?
Yeah.
And we had no idea what that was. And this is just a second reference to that dangerous thing in the high passes. And still, no clarity on what the hell that is.
Yeah.
It in no way helps. So if anyone has any ideas as to what's more dangerous in the high passes, I would love to hear it.
Terrible monsters, or the Dark One himself.
The worms are scared of? I can't imagine what's up there.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about was the wind rippled the farmers' fields like verdant ponds, solid with crops that almost seemed to creep upward visibly. And I get a lot of questions about how is it possible that everyone didn't starve with the extended winter and then the extended summer. And I think a big part of that is that they have this window of growing right at the end of the eye of the world. And a lot of the food that they eat over the next year or two is grown in this period of time.
Yeah.
Before summer really starts to kill all the crops. But they do have a significant growing season here where they get some spring and they get some good weather where they're able to do another harvest.
Until everything dries out. The smell of death was all but gone long before the wind reached the stone-walled town of Faldara on its hills and whipped around a tower of the fortress in the very center of the town. A tower atop which two men seemed to dance. Hard-walled and high, Faldara, both keep in town, never taken, never betrayed. The wind moaned across wood-shingled rooftops, around tall stone chimneys and taller towers, moaned like a dirge. I thought it was interesting that the narration notes that Faldara had never been betrayed before.
I highlighted that as well because it's about to be. Oh, Ingtar. He is the first to betray it.
At least he turns it around pretty soon after.
Yeah. Definitely caused by the trip to the Portal Stone. And so before he goes to the Portal Stone, I really don't have that much sympathy for Ingtar.
He's an interesting character. It does almost seem strange that someone who's so close to the Blight and constantly fighting Trollocs would become a dark friend, but at the same time, in the same way that Ishmael believes that it's inevitable that eventually the light will lose.
I think it's just despair. He's been fighting the dark for such a long time. He's seen so many friends lost to the Trollocs.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as a winnable fight. And, I see Ingtar as, who's the character in The Matrix who betrays them?
Cypher.
I see Cypher and
Ingtar
as really similar characters. They've been fighting the good fight, they've done it for a while, and they're so burned out that they've given into the opposite side and basically betrayed what they believed in.
Doesn't Ingtar believe that he couldn't save some part of Shinar if he pledges to the Dark One? Wasn't that the...
I think that's the promise he's given.
Yeah.
But like all the promises from the Dark One, it's bullshit.
Right? Why would you believe that?
People believe what they want to believe.
Fair enough.
And I think we can look at politics and see that pretty clearly.
And a number of other things.
Yeah.
That we try not to touch on too much.
It's very easy for someone to be convinced of something, and then you've got confirmation bias, you've got, just self-deception and all that kind of stuff that really...
If you really want something to be true, or if you're told enough times, you just kind of believe it.
Exactly. And fear plays a huge part in that. And Ingtar is clearly given into the fear that the Dark One is winning.
Or will eventually.
Yeah. I mean, he's seen Malkier fall.
Yeah.
He's seen just an unending fight along the Blight.
No, I can't find right away how old Ingtar is. But old enough. And I always think of him as a soldier, but he is a lord. So after our predictably awesome wind scene that opens every book of the Wheel of Time series, we see Rand and Lan practicing on the top of this tower, a crenellated tower in the Keep of Faldara.
This is one of those scenes that really establishes the closeness of their relationship.
Yeah.
And just how much Lan becomes a mentor and a teacher to Rand.
Yeah, this is when it really starts.
Because they've spent the last 2 weeks, I think in the last episode we talked about the, I expect you to be 2 weeks gone, sheep herder quote.
Yeah.
And so he's been there for 3 weeks? So
I think a month.
A month?
I noted that somewhere.
So he's been in training with Lan, I assume pretty much every day. He doesn't have anything else to do.
I would think so. Lan also says, if we had 5 years, I could make you a blade master.
Well, and I like the sort of underhanded comment of like, you're not going to cut your own foot off
Yeah.
from Lan. That is a huge compliment.
He is like that, and I have said many times before that I really like his Laconian style of speech. He's John Wayne or King Leonidas or...
Absolutely. And any compliment is going to be sincere and really mean something. He's not just like, oh, good job.
Right,
You know,
even a backhanded compliment, like, at least you won't cut your foot off.
Right.
That's actually a compliment from Lan.
I would totally be proud of that if Lan told me I wasn't going to cut my foot off. Because doesn't he say that, like, early in the Eye of the World, is like, why give these sheep herders a sword? They'll cut their own foot off. Or isn't there something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember an exact quote, but I'm willing to bet he expresses that, like, oh my god, who gave these sheep herders a sword and an axe? At least they've got the bow, which is a real weapon.
But Rand does have the void that he seems to be holding really well here. And I did notice there's a little scene here, or a little part of the narration here, where Rand finds the void, and I have emptiness came. As was too often the case of late, it was not a perfect emptiness. Flame still remained, or some sense of light sending ripples through the stillness, but it was enough, barely. And I see that as he can sense I did now, but he doesn't know what that is.
That's exactly what I had. Yeah, he's sensing, he can eventually he's able to pull from that source of light, and that source of light is Sadine.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's just disturbing the void for him. He doesn't really understand. But this is the first time I think that he's actually physically like sensing Sidene as opposed to just reaching out and channeling randomly.
Yeah, this is definitely the first time we see that. But that makes sense after his kind of outstanding channeling session at the end of the Eye of the World.
Right.
And
I often wonder if being taught the flame in the void is one of the reasons why he is able to survive the channeling sickness of a wilder. That only with the flame in the void is he able to achieve the calmness where he can master the one power.
I wouldn't be too surprised. It's a trick that all other channelers have to learn at some point. Do we see that with Ashaman in the future? Do they learn
the flame in the
oneness?
void? Yeah, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think Tam teaches that. I don't know if I have any direct evidence for it, but like no one ever says
Tame.
Yeah, Tame. Did I say Tam?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Tame. Man, those two names, Tam, Tame. It's just a tiny little eye right there. I don't think he would teach it in any other way. Because we see Asmodean try and teach him the flame in the void, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got that already."
Oh, cool.
So, as far as I know, no other channeler has a different method. It's all the flame in the void. Male channelers.
Yeah. As opposed to the rosebud.
Right.
We were just talking about this in one of our patron episodes.
That's right, yeah, the power episode.
Yeah.
That should be coming out soon.
Just recorded that last week. For patrons, and did we decide on a timeline for...
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let you know when that's going to come out to the regular feed, but...
We haven't figured out how fast we're going to be making those.
Yeah.
So.
Then I have another long thing to read where the wind from the blight comes and pushes on Rand. I'll start
Go for
this. For a long minute, the swift clack, clack, clack of bundled lathes meeting filled the tower top. Rand made no effort to reach the other man. It was all he could do to keep the warder strikes from reaching him. Turning Lan's blows at the last possible moment, he was forced back. Lan's expression never changed. The practice sword seemed alive in his hands. Abruptly, the warder's swinging slash changed in mid-motion to a thrust. Caught by surprise, Rand stepped back, already wincing with the blow he knew he could not stop this time. The wind howled across the tower and trapped him. It was as if the air suddenly gelled, holding him in a cocoon, pushing him forward. Time and motion slowed. Horrified, he watched Lan's practice sword drift toward his chest. There was nothing slow or soft about the impact. His ribs creaked, as if he had been struck with a hammer. He grunted, but the wind would not allow him to give way. It still carried him forward instead. The lathes of Lan's practice sword flexed and bent, ever so slowly, it seemed to Rand, then shattered, sharp points oozing toward his heart. Jagged laths piercing his skin. Pain lanced through his body. His whole skin felt slashed. He burned as though the sun had flared to crisp him, like bacon in a pan. With a shout, he threw himself stumbling back, falling against the stone wall. Hand trembling, he touched the gashes on his chest and raised bloody fingers before his gray eyes in disbelief. And what was that fool move, sheepherder?
That was a bubble of evil.
The wind, Rand's mouth was dry. It pushed me. It was solid as a wall. And Lan just replies, strange things can happen this close to the blight.
And I think he's wrong about that. Well, I don't know. Do you think the bubbles of evil are closer, happen more frequently, closer to Shale Ghul?
That would make sense. Although I don't know that we have any real evidence to say...
I know we know the bubbles tend to gravitate towards Ta'veren. But
yeah.
I don't think that physical location has much to do with it. I wonder if there are bubbles of evil over in, like, Shannara and, Shan-Chan. Like, are there bubbles of evil outside of Randland? Are they just attracted to the Ta'veren? I mean, we definitely hear about weird things happening later. But I just have a lot of questions about the bubble of evil.
I honestly can't think of a time that we see someone talking about a bubble of evil that doesn't happen near Rand, Perrin, or Matt.
Oh, well, like there's one where a guy turns to flame and Avienda uses a river to put him out. I guess that is near Rand. We do hear a lot about like strange things happening and weird occurrences. I think those are bubbles of evil that happen elsewhere. But they're definitely most frequent near the Ta'veren. Just like the pattern, they tend to be pulled in towards them.
Yeah. Lan says, strange things can happen this close to the blight. Not like that, Rand protested. And Lan says, for someone like you... He shrugged, as if that explained anything. How long before you leave, sheepherder? A month since you said you were going, and I thought you'd be 3 weeks gone by now.
Oh, there's that month.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, for Lan, when he says someone like you, what do you think he's saying? Ta'veren, Dragon Reborn, Channeler?
I think Lan knows he's the dragon.
Do you think he's saying someone like you? Like, that, because, like, there's no one like the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say a Ta'veren is like the dragon in some ways.
Sure.
There's definitely a difference. He's going to be the most powerful Ta'veren. And I think that Moraine knows that Rand is the dragon, and there's not really anything Moraine knows that Lan doesn't.
I assume he's referring to him being a channeler more than anything else.
Yeah?
That was my assumption, is he's not necessarily... Maybe Ta'veren, but I think Ta'veren and channeler... Maybe with a little bit of Dragon... But see, now I'm just confusing myself.
I just assumed it was a Ta'veren thing, which makes perfect sense.
Sure. And he's sure he's the Ta'veren.
Yeah.
I mean, Moraine says that over and over and over again. But, it's obvious that Lan is taking a special interest in Rand over the other two boys. It might just be because he's got the Heron Mark sword and he's learning the sword, but I think it's also because he knows he's more than just another Ta'veren.
I like to believe that it's because he's the dragon.
Right.
And Lan knows it, and he's worth putting time and effort into. In a way that, not necessarily that the others aren't, but just that Rand is more worth the time. He's the most important.
And I think that later Moraine says she made a mistake by focusing on Rand and not the other two as well, because they were also important to Viren.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the wheel spat them out for a reason. Rand needs them.
There's disagreement in the chat room as to which one of us is right, which is awesome.
About Lan's thinking here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's interesting that... Because I just had never...
We get a great description of the sword here. I like that there are 3 herons on the sword. There's one on the hilt, one on the scabbard, and one on the blade itself.
Yeah.
So just in case you missed the fact that this was a heron marked sword, there are 3 herons all over this thing. They're not messing around.
Lan explains that essentially means that not only is it a true heron marked blade, but it was special even at the time it was made, as opposed to Lan's sword, which was probably a simple soldier sword.
Well, so there's 2 things going on with Rand's sword. It's both power wrought and heron marked.
Right.
And you can have heron marked blades that are not power wrought, which like the Shan Chan Blade Master, Turok, I think he has a non-power wrought heron marked sword.
Is that right?
Well, he's got a heron marked sword.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything we see indicates that it's power wrought. Versus Lan, who has a power wrought sword that's not heron marked. Mm-hmm. And then Rand, who has a sword that's both.
Yeah.
And the non-heron marked swords were made for common soldiers by the Aes Sedai.
Right.
The power wrought ones. And the power wrought heron marked swords were made for the generals and the lords back during the Age of Legends. Mm-hmm. And that's why the heron became a mark of being a blade master, is because it was given to basically the nobility.
Nodding.
Someone suggested we should make a shirt, Wheel of Time spoilers. I'm nodding. Apparently we say that a lot.
That started like right when we first started doing this.
Well, because we're like looking at each other and like, you know, one of us is talking
across the table from each other.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm nodding. Like I can't do that on the podcast. Physically, you guys can't see me.
I think we also thought it would be annoying to like say affirmative things. Although, like, there's only so many affirmative single words that you can say.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
Right. Next thing I have is, again, Lan seemed to read his mind. In the Borderlands sheepherder, if a man has the raising of a child, that child is his, and none can say different.
I think that has to do with the fact that Rand was like looking at the blade, and Lan knows him well enough to know that when he's looking at the blade, he's thinking of his father.
Yeah.
Or at least the heron marks on the blade.
And we've speculated before that people like Moraine, Morghese, maybe even Lan may have known who Tam was, or have some idea of who he might have been. He had a position of fairly high status.
I think that Morghese talked with him. I'm not sure she would have like recognized him.
Oh, probably.
Do you think? Do we talk about Moraine having a relationship with him? Maybe by reputation.
Oh, I don't know, but I just assume these people would know. You know, there's only so many Blade Masters out there, especially active ones during it that fought in the Blood Snow. Like,
and here we get the origin of the second oath of the Aes Sedai, not to make any weapon forged by the One Power.
Yeah, Lan launches into a long explanation of the different types of heron mark swords, power wrought, and explains that they're not made anymore, or the making is not known anymore.
I noticed he specified that the blades were often made just to specifically face Myrddraal.
Oh, doesn't he say? Oh, it's right here. But there were simpler weapons too. Simpler weapons than Lan explains that there are weapons made that use the power, weapons made from the power that use the power, but there were also simpler weapons too, for those who had faced Myrddraal and worse things the Dreadlords made, blade to blade.
And we see that with the blue lightning that happens. I wonder if Myrddraal blades are able to like take out regular blades. I mean, I know they
take out.
Well, you know, I know they kill with just a nick, but why does a power wrought blade help you kill a Fade? Is it that it's more effective at killing them? Is it that it can counter their blade with blue lightning and destroy it? Like, why is the blade better against Myrddraal?
I don't know. Is it? Is it really any better than a regular sword? Other than that it won't shatter?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an important thing, in that it cuts easily. So
it doesn't need to be maintenance.
Right. But that doesn't seem like, why would you spend a lot of effort making power wrought blades just to fight Myrddraal? Doesn't seem like men are all that effective against them. I
would have to just broadly speculate why that may have been done.
Enigma has a good point that Fade blood tends to etch regular blades, and
that's true.
Perhaps they wanted a power wrought blade just so it doesn't get messed up from the blood. That makes sense.
But I mean, a tool that never needs to be sharpened or maintained in any way is valuable all by if you had a Power Wrought shovel, that would be an awesome thing.
I wonder why they don't make more Power Wrought tools.
Right? Why
like
not?
a Power Wrought chisel would be great for a woodworker.
Or really anything at all.
Yeah. Maybe like a Power Wrought scythe for like harvesting wheat.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anyone use a scythe for its actual purpose of harvesting grain?
I've seen it. I've seen demonstrations.
Isn't it really cool?
It's interesting. There's like a little basket that I didn't know that until I had seen it for collecting wheat. That collects the wheat as you cut it.
I think it's like it's basically a really old school mower.
Yeah,
which is it's fun to see those skills being used from someone who has mastered them. When the vast, there used to be that almost all people knew how to use a scythe, and now it's like I don't know how that works.
I don't know how much I want to talk about a decent series called the Ember Series by S.M. Stirling, where basically like modern technology stops working. I'll spare everyone the long explanation, but so there's like an apocalypse, and essentially we do spoilers here. So it's essentially the old gods take the world back because humans have become too brazen or crass or whatever. And so they like make it so that guns and internal combustion engines and electricity all stop working at once. So a lot of the series centers around, or the first couple of books of the series center around these characters that had developed these skills. Like there's like one's a martial artist and another guy's like a Marine or something. So they have to use these old skills.
That's why I have learned how to brew beer and make pottery. Right.
Yeah. I mean, if it came down to it, I would have no idea how to plant and take care of wheat. I've never seen it done. Never even seen it.
I mean, it's just grass, right? You're pulling the seeds.
More or less. Figure it out. I'd probably stick to potatoes. It seems much simpler, and that I have done.
Right.
And there's always vodka, guys.
Yeah. No, I know how to distill. I figure if I can make alcohol, I'm good. Like, everyone wants that skill.
We won't lack for a pot here in the Pacific Northwest. Like, every other person is growing now that it's legal.
Dude, my parents are seriously considering it. Because they have a plot of irrigated, like, legally irrigatable land down in southern Oregon.
Yeah.
And it's a cash crop. And they're seriously thinking about making the conversion. I think they've got, like, 4 or 5 acres that they can irrigate. And they're just going to, like, grow a pot.
Don't know anyone well, but I like friends of friends who've there's a whole thing you can do where you like buy up licenses from people essentially, because there's only a certain amount of plants that you're allowed to. Essentially, you can grow pot for people.
Oh, so that's
people like pay you money.
That's like the medical side of things
to deliver at the end of the. Oh, that's right.
So that's different than the recreational stuff. So I'm sure it's different in every state, and we're I know our state's still figuring it out and making changes yearly, if not more frequently, to the laws.
Yeah.
So I'm not up on the most recent.
All you Watt spoiler listeners have decent apocalypse plans, because we do.
Yeah.
I literally talk about this with my friends.
Sure. Whether it's zombies, whether it's disease, whether it's nuclear war, whether it's some sort of fantasy apocalypse where technology fails and magic starts coming back, you better have a plan.
Bicycles still work in the Ember Series.
They should work everywhere.
There's no reason for them not to.
Bicycles
it's a pretty
magic.
simple machine.
Yeah. They're magical machines. They take human efficiency from like crappy to amazing in terms of transporting ourselves around. They just give us a huge mechanical advantage.
Hey, in World War I, they had troops that used bicycles. Scouts.
We still have cops that use bicycles.
Yeah. And you don't have to feed a bicycle.
And it's a hell of a lot easier to move stuff around on a bike than throw it on your back. My biggest problem with apocalypse stuff is like, I'm sure I'll die in the first wave. Right? I'd be like, something's odd. I'm dead. Like, there's no like, I'll be able to survive. You wake up in a hospital after 90% of the population's dead. That's how they all start. They don't start with like, you're in the 90% or the 99%. Like, you are going to be in the 99%. You are not going to survive the apocalypse.
What's the British zombie film? 28 Days Later.
Okay. I was going to go Shaun of the Dead.
That's where he literally wakes up in a hospital.
Yeah. Well, and Resident Evil also.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a horror fantasy, or a zombie trope.
The 28 Days Later movies were always my favorite. First of all, zombies are more horrifying. Second of all, if that happened in, like, the American South, like, there'd be so many guns. There's, like, if 9 out of 10 people are dead, like, there's just guns everywhere.
Right.
You wouldn't even have to raid a gun store. Just, like, go
Raid
door
houses.
to door.
Yeah, totally.
Just ammunition everywhere.
Oh, Walking Dead, Logan Hill said Walking Dead did the hospital thing, too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing.
Definitely referenced. I don't know. At least it's not in the mall. The original.
Oh.
The original.
The original Walking Dead? Or original, what was that film? Where they, like, get the box truck and stick chainsaws out of it?
The Night of the Living Dead.
Is that Night of the Living Dead?
I think so.
I don't know my zombie stuff as well.
We don't really have anything like zombies in The Wheel of Time. Greyman? I know. There's no, like, mindless...
There's the Zomara, but they're semi-intelligent. They're not really... They're alive.
And the name definitely references zombies. Like, Drakkar are definitely vampires referencing Dracula.
Yeah.
Trollocs are...
Orcs?
Trolls and orcs combined. You know, Myrddraal are clearly the ring rats from Lord of the Rings. The hooded
clearly.
dark figure.
Yeah.
There may be another reference.
Oh, another thing from hanging out with Julia. Noticed ring wraiths don't cross moving water.
No, that's a big thing. That's a big, just a fantasy trope in general, that supernatural things cannot cross running water. That goes, like, back to fairies and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan likes to sort of take our modern day fairy tales and tell a story that could eventually become our modern day fairy tales. And the idea that ring wraiths, fades, can't cross the water. He's sort of saying that was the origin of the story, that now our modern mythological creatures can't cross running water.
Yeah, well, yeah, I like that. I also like the idea that the Wheel of Time world, the Wheel of Time story happens in another turning of the wheel. It's the third age again, but it's another turning.
Right. The third age has happened before and will happen again.
Yeah.
It's a very...
There is, like, a Wheel of Time. I think it is a Hindu thing.
Hindu, yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while when I'm, like, Googling around for Wheel of Time stuff, I run into some yoga studio somewhere, which is cool. More off-topic stuff. Julia got me into doing yoga, which turns out I really like. It's enjoyable, soothing, and challenging. Anyway.
That's cool.
Yeah, nice.
I don't have the balance or the flexibility to do yoga.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot you can do with an instructor. I just downloaded a bunch of, like, tutorials that I follow.
And here's another place where sort of the reality becomes a legend, where he talks about all the legends of the blades that have created tales of swords that seem to have a power of their own. But the swords themselves really don't have any power. You know,
right.
I actually think I respect that a lot about Jordan. Almost, you know, Sword of Truth, a lot of other, you know, even Sting, you know, a lot of the swords in fantasy series have special powers. Really, none of the swords in the Wheel of Time do.
No, they're swords. I mean, they're unbreakable swords. Right. So that's cool in its own right, but it's actually not, like we were just talking about, really terribly... It's not that much more useful than a regular sword.
Right. It helps you with, like, maintenance. And
yeah.
You know it's not going to break when you're fighting. So you can, like, really swing it as hard as you want. But, like, it's not like, oh, you scratch a dark friend and he turns black and dies. You know, it's not like you can kill a Myrddraal with, like...
It doesn't glow when your enemies are near.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's not Sting. It's just... and they break that a little bit with Mahalinar, Perrin's hammer, because that one does have some powers. It does kill dark hounds. it does seem to burn the Trollocs as well as hit them.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes, does the burning really do anything? Like, if you're already getting hit with a hammer, if it just singes you a little too, does that really... is that helpful at all? You know what I'm saying?
I imagine it's disabling.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem to have, like, +1 versus undead style.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's just a little more powerful, a little more damage. A glancing blow may be disabling because of pain.
And the first Power Wrought weapons in 3,000 years.
Right. It just doesn't quite follow the mold of Power Wrought weapons. Because up to this point, we've seen them all as swords. That's a hammer. They never seem to do any damage to Dark Friends beyond just cutting her hip. And the hammer does. So it seems to be an enhanced power forged weapon.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But there aren't going to be any more. Well, until the Ashaman start making them. Because the Aes Sedai have sworn not to make any. And that's why I think it ends up being, who are the female channelers that help out the Ashaman that make Perrin's Blade? Is it folks from the kin? Or is it...
I think it's Kin's women.
Or is it Sean Chan? Oh, it's Wise Ones. It's Wise Ones. Kin and Wise Ones.
He has a kind of ragtag collection of various types of channelers by that point in the series.
Right. But none of the Aes Sedai can bond and form that circle to make those weapons because of the second oath.
Yeah. So Lan gives this whole diatribe about Aes Sedai and how they used to make Power Wrought weapons and don't anymore, and the different types and things. And I have Rand replying, "I can't get away from them," Rand said. "Can I?" And Lan says, "Do you really want to get away, sheepherder? I'll ask again. Why are you not gone then?"
I think this is where Moiraine's strategy is working. So I know a big frustration with this early plot is that Rand just wants answers from her. He's like, tell me what's going on. But she knows if she's there at his beck and call, answers questions, he's going to assume she's manipulating him and trying to force him to do what she wants and use him as a false dragon. I mean, the last time we really saw them interact, he accused her of trying to use him as a false dragon.
Yeah, more or less.
And so basically by ignoring him, she's doing... And, she's not ignoring him clearly. We saw her listening in with the blue bead. Lan is probably reporting back every freaking word that's being said. Like, she is keeping really close tabs on him. But by looking like she's not, she's doing a good job of keeping him around because he wants to basically get her attention.
I always viewed this move by Moiraine also as, if not only showing Rand that she doesn't want to manipulate him, specifically not manipulating him because Moiraine knows little enough. Like, what is she going to tell Rand? What is she going to tell the Dragon Reborn to do? And if she tells him to do the wrong thing, will it fuck everything up? Maybe. So I always thought that Moiraine kind of wants him to... She wants the pattern to weave him into wherever he's supposed to be. She wants him to wander off.
I think she's also doing some research here. Like, later we see her get together with the two retired Aes Sedai.
Yeah. I don't remember their names, but there's that cool scene where Lan and one of the retired warders kill a drag car together.
Didn't we say it was Thomas? And then we decided it wasn't Thomas, and it was somebody else, and we had a whole...
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think someone sent us a correction on that.
Definitely.
I don't remember.
Definitely. It's Adelius and Vandine.
Okay, I remember those names.
And Vandine. Yeah, those are the two sisters. And so that's not here, but I think that Moiraine is off trying to find information about the Dragon Reborn. Maybe not necessarily with them, but we see her do it later with them. And I think she's doing that now as well. Just looking for any... She doesn't know what to do. She's got the Dragon Reborn on her hands, and all of a sudden... She has context for a lot of these prophecies, and so I think she's doing as much research as she can to figure out, like, okay, now that I know who the Dragon Reborn is and where he's from, what other prophecies apply?
Yeah.
Help me figure out what the hell to do next.
What's our next move?
Exactly. So I think she's off doing research, basically.
Yeah, I think at least in part. But, I mean, I don't know if it was Moraine's intent, but the pattern does weave something for them to do. Shortly.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Moiraine definitely brings in the Armerlin.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about Fane stealing the horn.
Right, so then they have to go
Right.
do something, which all ends up being important. You hold yourself as if the sword belongs at your waist, sheep herder, and most village bullies will sense it. But you've had that much since the day you put it on. So why are you still here? Matt and Perrin are still here, Rand mumbled. I don't want to leave before they do.
So, and they go back and forth on this, like, well, I want to see Matt and Perrin. I want to see Egwene. And he's like, yeah, Egwene's not going with you. She's going to Valon. Don't get...
Yeah.
She's not going to give that up to follow you around.
It's like, well, I wouldn't want her to come with me.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, right, buddy. Yes, you would. But it really comes down to, he finally admits, it's Moraine. I wouldn't be here if not for her. And she won't as much as talk to me.
Oh, I like just a little before that, Lan says about, after Rand says that stuff about Egwene, love is an odd thing, Lan said, suddenly wary, as odd a thing as there is.
As he thinks about Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he stares glistening-eyed into the distance. No, not really, because it's Lan, but, you know.
Right. As he stared cold-eyed and dry-eyed into the distance. With not an expression on his face as he thought about the woman he loves.
They're in the middle of this conversation, and Lan sort of interrupts. I like this little bit here. You certainly aren't learning anything standing there. Time for a little balance work. Go through parting the silk, beginning from heron wading in the rushes. Remember that the heron form is only for practicing balance. Anywhere but doing forms. It leaves you wide open. You can strike home from it. If you wait for the other man to move first, you'll never avoid his blade. She has to be able to tell me something, Lan. He's talking about Moraine here. The wind, it wasn't natural, and I don't care how close to the blight we are. Heron waiting in the rushes, sheep herder, and mind your wrists. From the south came a faint peal of trumpets, a rolling fanfare growing louder, accompanied by the steady thrum, thrum, thrum of drums. For a moment, Rand and Lan stared at each other, and the drums drew them to the tower wall to stare southward. I'm going to keep reading here because Seth stepped away, and this is good stuff. The city stood on high hills. The land around the city walls cleared to ankle height for a full mile in all directions, and the keep covered the highest hill of all. From the tower top, Rand had a clear view across the chimneys and roofs to the forest. The drummers appeared first from the trees, a dozen of them. Drums lifting as they stepped to their own beat, mallets whirling. Next came trumpeters, long, shining horns raised, still calling the flourish. At that distance, Rand could not make out the huge, square banner whipping in the wind behind them. Lan grunted, though. The warder had eyes like a snow eagle. Rand glanced at him, but the warder said nothing, his eyes intent on the column emerging from the forest. Mounted men in armor rode out of the trees, and women a horseback too. Then a palanquin borne by horses, one before and one behind, its curtains down, and more men on horseback, ranks of men afoot, and so on. And this is the Amyrlin seed arriving. Rand looks down, and as the column draws near, the wind flapped the banner, taller than a man, straight out to one side. As big as it was close enough now for Rand to see clearly. A swirl of colors that meant nothing to him, but at the heart of it, a shape like a pure white teardrop. His breath froze in his throat, the flame of Tar Valon.
That's a bit of an odd banner.
The swirling colors around the flame of Tar Valon?
Yeah. I've never really seen it in any artwork.
It's out there. I don't know how many times it really appears in the series.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot more with Egwene later.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I've seen it, in fan art anyway.
Because the ancient banner of the Aes Sedai is a red banner with the, yin-yang on it. The flame and the fang.
Right.
Doesn't Rand have a dragon banner with just the fang? Or is that... No, that's not right.
Yeah, that's the full symbol.
Yeah. Does the Black Tower ever use the fang as a symbol?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Other than being scrawled on someone's door, I'm trying to think where else we've seen the dragon fang.
I don't think it's ever really... I don't know how much if we see it separated.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently the Black Tower is a different series. Yeah, no, not that I know of. I kind of viewed it as like the personal banner of the Emerald Seat.
Yeah.
Because it has all 7 colors and the...
I think Elida removes the blue from it.
Yeah.
And then Egwene puts it back.
Right.
Oh, I really like this next sentence. With Ingtar's with them, Lan sounded as if his thoughts were elsewhere. Back from his hunting at last. Been gone long enough. I wonder if he had any luck. Where do you think he was?
Don't know, but I had the same thought.
Dark Friend Social.
Oh, the Dark Friend Social.
The thing that just happened in the last chapter. So that's totally Lan being like, he was gone for a long time. He was at the Dark Friend Social.
Guess he didn't have any luck hunting.
No. So he just got his orders to not kill Rand, I think.
So sometime in between now and like around the time Rand meets Suwan, Ingtar opens the gate.
Right.
Because Ingtar isn't inside Faldara yet.
Right. Well, because I think it's when they're about to leave. It's a little bit later, after a couple more days.
But sometime soon, he executes his orders, which we deduced. That's at least one of them.
I also wonder if he's there, because Liandrin comes with them, and she's a Black Sister. So I wonder if he and Liandrin were in cahoots, because he's coming back with...
No way to know. I would guess not.
Probably not. They probably have their own independent orders.
Yeah. So that's how they do it. Each dark friend at the social is like an individual cell.
Right.
Why so many? Rand whispered while they're looking at the column. The Emerald Seats come in person. Lan looked at him. His expression is hard and unreadable as a rock. Your lessons are done, sheepherder. He paused then, and Rand almost thought there was sympathy on his face. That could not be, of course. Better for you if you were a week gone.
It's funny how similar I highlight the exact passages that you read, and we don't talk about it. I'm like, maybe like a sentence, you start maybe a sentence before, a sentence after, like where I highlight. But
that does happen a lot.
It's remarkable how often we both pick out the same significant passages to talk about without any collusion beforehand.
Find the same things. Yeah, we don't talk about we specifically try not to talk about like what we're interested in a chapter. So like when we sit down, we talk about like how our weeks went or what we've been up to or whatever. But if we start accidentally breaking into what we're going to talk about, we stop ourselves.
I'm always like, let's save that for the recording.
Yeah, because the whole podcast is us talking about it. So if we talk about it beforehand.
Occasionally, I think sometimes it does help us with our rhythm a little bit, but also sometimes we like have good content that like, oh, we didn't record that crap.
Yeah, that's happened to us before.
Yeah. So let's try and save it.
Shit, we just talked for 20 minutes. That's what we're supposed to do.
Let's turn on the microphones and say the same thing over again.
Yeah, which is actually a hard thing to do once you've already had a conversation with someone. It's hard to do it again. It feels weird the whole time.
Well, and there's a bunch of times where I'm like, wait, did we say that in the recording or not? And it's just easier if we like only talk during the recording. I don't have to worry about whether we said it.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll talk a little more after about what we just talked about.
Sure.
But,
sure. And we definitely keep talking to our patrons after we stop recording.
Yeah.
We've done that a bunch.
There's always, or, someone disagrees with our theory and it turns into a conversation, but...
No one's ever disagreed with us.
We're always right.
Always right.
Rand stares at the column approaching Faldara as if it really were a snake, a deadly viper. I liked that. And then I just have the last paragraph. I don't know if you have anything else.
Just the fact that she's there because of him. That's pretty obvious.
She is actually there because of him. Where in your first read through, you're like, no way. She's like, she's that's why she's there.
And of course Rand swearing like, I'm not going to channel. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't even try to channel. So
right.
He the only way to control it is to do it.
Do we know, how does Suwan know that Moraine is in Faldara?
I assume just a
with
pigeon.
Her quarry.
She sent a message. Pigeons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a month. I think later they say they like used the one power to like push them upriver so they could get there faster. And
oh, right.
Yeah. So it's been long enough for a pigeon to fly to Tar Valon.
Yeah.
Which isn't super, super far from Faldara. I mean, it's a ways, but It's not like across the entire continent. And then they come up the river on a ship.
I'm just looking at the route. It's a kind of a weird roundabout route that they would have to take.
But doing it on a boat is still way faster than
and it is
walking.
Upriver,
Yes.
not down.
Well, that's why they use the wind.
Yeah.
Mess the weather up for a ways.
But you can take the river almost all the way
Right.
to Feldara. With a start, he, meaning Rand, realized that the Aes Sedai party was entering the city gates. The wind swirled up fiercely, chilling his sweat like droplets of ice, making the trumpet sound like sly laughter. He thought he could smell an open grave, strong in the air. My grave if I keep standing here. Grabbing his shirt, he scrambled down the ladder and began to run.
He really doesn't have that much to worry about.
Nah, Suan and Moraine are on his side.
But Leandrin is not, as we'll see in the next chapter.
Yeah. Speaking of jobs, I've been applying to some stuff.
Yeah? You looking?
Yeah. This bar on 34th. I'm hoping I get a call back. That's actually a pretty cool place.
Nice. Yeah, Jessica was going to apply to a more of a boutique-y place. They're looking for someone part-time, so she's looking to add a couple shifts maybe.
That's what I'm trying to do. Because I'm worried about, well, kind of worried about, because Jules's work schedule, like she starts work at 6, she punches in at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So if I get a job closing a bar, like doing a nighttime gig, I'll finish work like right before she wakes up in the morning at 5. You know?
Yeah.
So like I could do that occasionally. I don't know, but I need something.
Something else, because you're not putting in a whole lot of hours at your current job.
No, just a couple days a week, and it's kind of ironic, but like I feel like the less productive I am, the less productive I am. If that makes sense. Like,
no, I've noticed that. I've definitely noticed that, both in me and in you. That if we don't have,
when I was working like 6 days a week and doing this, and I was like getting a ton of shit done all the time.
Right.
But then
you were like dating someone,
cut my schedule down. And I was just like laid in bed for a week, and I was like, what is life? And more than a week, really.
When I'm not working, I try and keep myself on a schedule, because if I don't, I can waste so much time.
That's what I've been doing.
Easily.
It's helpful. Well, going to the gym anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's at least something.
I'm applying for jobs, talking to Tom a lot.
What else are you... Oh, good. Good. When are you gonna come up with your first episode?
I don't know. Hopefully before the end of the year.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Yeah, I know.
All right. We have the merchandise.
Oh, yeah.
Buttons and stickers. You've seen them for the first time tonight.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They look really good. These stickers are like an interesting material. It's like a higher quality. They seem like waterproof or something.
They're like a vinyl coated. I don't know. I think I lucked out on them.
Yeah.
They look really nice.
I'm looking forward to sending these out to people. Let them know they're appreciated.
Me too. I've got lists. I've got spreadsheets.
Cool.
Of people that need stuff. So that should be going out soon.
We're also going to figure out how to mail stuff to Europe, because I've never done that before. Shouldn't be too crazy. It's not like a heavy thing or anything. It's going to be like a letter.
Right. I think the biggest problem is weight when you're shipping international.
Yeah, I would think so.
This should just be envelopes or letters. Have to decide exactly what sort of packaging we want to send things in.
Yeah.
Because I think for the signed artwork, I want some sort of padded envelope. Maybe like a do not bend type thing.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a little bit bigger than just a simple envelope.
So it doesn't get too mucked up.
Yeah.
Like one of those cardboard envelopes.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of work to do, but as soon as we get some time, hopefully that'll start going out. And
yeah, they'll be shipped out in not too long. What else? help Julia decorate her apartment and bring back a Christmas tree, which was kind of fun because she's really into it. But typically, left to myself, I do not celebrate the holidays. I'm kind of a curmudgeon. Like, what is this? Why do I celebrate this ancient pagan holiday? I don't care.
I'm right there with you.
But yeah. When I'm with someone who does care, then I'm actually like inclined to do something about it.
I always feel guilty over Christmas. Like
Guilty?
Yeah, like the presents I get people are never good enough, and they get me stuff. And
that's why I hate Christmas.
It's awful. It's awful.
It's this bizarre social tradition where, and then people get me stuff, and I have to like be stoked about it no matter what it is, and I'm really bad at that.
Right. Well, neither one of us is particularly like material.
Don't get me anything, because I'm not going to get you anything.
No.
That's how I play it.
And so often I'm like, thanks for the trash. Just going to throw this out.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't literally say that, but like, I didn't really need that bag of candy.
John Michael said his favorite part of Christmas is getting socks. I submitted a request this year to get jeans instead of socks because I just bought some socks.
Submitted a request.
Yeah, I was like, in this year, can I get a slightly different kind of clothing? And I was told that would be okay. I still might get socks though. No, totally. Like when I was a kid, socks were the worst present you could possibly get. As an adult, they're like the best.
Yeah.
Because you always need more socks. Anyway, I'm hoping for the universal Christmas gift of cash.
Me too.
I accept checks.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?